ladies and gentlemen, the Rafale has been nerfed. Finally. I know I'm a little late to this, but I kind of want to go over it and give my two-piece on this whole nerf situation and how it's going to affect or how it's not going to affect the game as a whole and the performance of the Rafale, obviously specifically in Sim. So for those that aren't aware, the Rafale's sustained turn rate was nerfed about a week, 2 weeks ago by Squishface putting in a bug report, thankfully. Now, I'll throw the bug report on the screen, and if you guys want more details, it's there. Squish also puts out a couple videos going over some of this stuff, and if you want to dive into it, you're more than welcome to. I'm not going to go over the details here, but again, the TLDR is the sustained turn rate of the Rafale has been reduced. The patch notes say that it's 1 less degree per second of sustained turn rate. In practice, it's closer to 1.5 to 2 seconds, depending on fuel. And kind of where this ends up lying on paper, where the Rafale sits in the current meta of flight performance and dogfighting, kind of closer to like number 5 on the leaderboard from 2 to 5, right? And remember, this is on paper, right? This is only on paper. That's kind of the ongoing theme with this whole nerf, right? Is on paper, the Rafale's now getting beat by the Gripen. For those that aren't aware, there's a meme going around that this whole nerf has turbo nuked the Rafale, and now the Gripen beats the brakes off of it and all this stuff. And a lot of people kind of like looking at like, oh, on paper, this is kind of what we're seeing. And yeah, I know Willy Walrus did a video as well. And I mean, he's more of an RB player. I mean, he is an RB player, and they play the game probably a little more differently because obviously you have the instructor and there's some things to think about. Obviously, we talk in the context, or at least I talk in the context of Sim. And on paper really doesn't matter 95% of the time in game when you're playing Sim. I think Simply kind of put it the best in Discord in some conversations. The Rafale essentially just feels like it has about 4 minutes of extra fuel. It just feels a little bit more heavy. That's kind of from my testing and playing. The plane itself just kind of feels more heavy. I would say 4 minutes is probably an accurate amount, like 4 to 6. I mean, that's about it. It bleeds a little bit more speed. Its sustained turn rate isn't as good. But, I mean, right, that's really only gonna matter when you merge. And we're not talking about duels. I'm not a big dueler. We're talking about EC, right? So a very dynamic environment. Fuel loads are gonna vary. Nothing about EC is symmetrical. Everything about EC is asymmetrical. People are gonna have different missile loads. People are gonna be in different planes. They're gonna be varying on fuel load and all this stuff experience when you actually make it to the merge. And I don't want to downplay this nerf, right? I mean, it's a big deal for something like this to happen for a plane that it's so prolific, that, like the Rafale, to have a pretty substantial flight performance nerf like this, right? It's not, I don't want to belittle it, like it's not a small feat to do. I think the question is it actually going to matter? When is it going to matter? And how do you get around it if you're playing the Rafale? So question 1, does it matter? Yeah, it does. It does matter, right? Because you still merge in EC. There are still times where you've lost the missile duel, or you've been forced defensive, or whatever the case may be, and really your only opportunity to continue and win the fight is to force a merge, or the player that you're going against has forced the merge, whether they've multipathed the whole way or whatever. So does it matter? Yes, it does matter. I appreciate the fact that this has happened. I am grateful that this plane has been nerfed because I, like I said, have been playing it for a little bit and I feel it. I have felt it in dogfights. I've noticed it. Now, with that being said, top tier, anybody that plays top tier, especially in Sim, knows just how rare merges actually are. Unless you're multipathing 24/7 and you're actively looking for merge after merge after merge, they're pretty rare. I mean, a substantial amount of fights just turn into missile jousts, right? I mean, that's kind of what top tier is ever since the Fox 3 update. And I mean, you could make the argument that you have less energy retention at certain speeds. So, like, if you're doing like the vertical notch, if you're not careful, right, if you pull back on the stick too hard for too long, like, you're gonna bleed more speed a little faster. But I mean, we're talking about the Rafale that's got like some of the most ridiculously thrust-producing engines in the game, right? I mean, you're just get it back in the next second or two. So when does it matter? Again, I mean, it's kind of obvious, right? In the merges. When do those happen? I mean, not very often. You're in the Rafale at top tier. And I mean, what do you do to get around this? You just don't merge. I mean, obviously, right? Like, just running from every fight and like trying not to merge is like pretty cowardly and like not super enjoyable and pretty boring. But I mean, people do that all the time, especially in the Rafale and the Eurofighter, right? They'll climb up to contrail height, they'll fly around at like damn near Mach 2, launch their missiles, and the second you show any a bit of aggression towards them, they immediately turn around and go back to the safety of their airfield and rinse and repeat, right? So, I mean, if you're the type of player that loves to chase after Rafale players, I mean, this is good news for you, right? But it's the same discussion and the same topic as always. You just need to actually survive to the merge, and that is much easier said than done against a Rafale, especially a semi-decent, competent Rafale player, right? The MICA is just so prolific, especially on this plane. So, like, the nerf is great, and if you merge with the Rafale, you'll probably notice that, yeah, he's probably not going to be flying as good as he used to be. I mean, he can still pull just insane giga AOA, and like the engines are still absolutely insanely powerful. So like the Rafale is still like insanely good in the dogfight. Like, but like, yeah, sure, on paper it's definitely not as good. Now in RB, you're probably gonna feel that more so than in Sim, because Sim is usually kind of more like 1v1s, maybe 1v2s. It's not the absolute chaos of RB where it's just 10 plus players all launching missiles at each other, and I mean, just absolute pure chaos, right? But I mean, it's no surprise to anybody, the Rafale was still hands down the single best plane in Sim, and it's still not even close. We talk about this nerf, it in the grand scheme of things, the Rafale was still the best plane, and it's obvious why. It just comes down to tech. It comes down to what the plane can do outside of the merge. And with the most recent update, we got the fact that now the MICA has no gimbal limits. And what does the Rafale have other than one of the best radars in the game? It has tied for the best IRST in the game. So instead of, merging all the time, you can just put your target on your shoulder 90 degrees with your IRST. You can now switch to radar very quickly, launch the missile, and then switch back to IRST. Yeah, it's going to be a mem lock because obviously the radar doesn't have 90-degree gimbal, right? But your IRST does, and with the gimbal limits removed from the MICA can now launch from memory. So now you can quite literally launch Fox 3s, mind you, the single best maneuvering and quickest accelerating Fox 3 in the game, over your shoulder 90 degrees while maintaining defensive posture the entire time. And not just like a defensive posture, like actively vertical notching missiles. Like you are actively in the defense defeating missiles. Oops, I'm just gonna shoot this off real quick, and then your opponent really doesn't have any ability. Like they now have to go into the defense. You've been in the defense the entire time, and then you can just capitalize on now their lack of position. And that's if the MICA doesn't slap them right in the face outright. It's like 1,000 steps forward and 1 step back for this plane. I mean, the Rafale is not going anywhere. I think I said this in my other Rafale video, Enough is Enough, right? The Rafale is kind of future-proof. It's gonna be future-proof for a very, very long time. It has tech that no other plane has currently. It has some of the best missiles currently, if not the best. I don't think there's really any argument that the MICA is the best missile in the game. And when we get next gen IR with the MICA IR, I mean, it's still going to be in the discussion for having some of the best, if not still the best missiles in the game. Like, yeah, its flight performance might not hold a candle to some planes that we're going to get in the future, like the F-22 or maybe some advanced J-10s, but still, I mean, I don't really think it's going to matter because of the way our missiles, the way you can make a Rafale perform now with its current missile kit. I mean, it again, it negates the merge. I can just actively launch missiles in the notch and just never have to merge. Like, even still here on the footage, right? Like, this J-10 made it to the merge. I couldn't get the missile off in time because I was focusing on a Su-30. It kind of caught me off guard. But, like, the Rafale was still very, very, very good, right? I mean, like, the J-10's not really some insanely good two-circle fighter. Anyways, so, like, this isn't a great use case, but, like, I mean, it's still an example, right? I'm at 13 minutes of fuel. I have 2 missiles, so I'm not, like, insanely light, but I am pretty light. And I can just cut in, turn the AOA button on, and just dump all my AOA for very quick position, just like that. And, I mean, there's really not a whole lot he can do. And even if I did want to do that there, I could have just locked him with IRST, waited until we kind of got into a head-on position and we merged, and I could have just shot him in the face with a MICA there. But I went for the gunshot just to kind of prove a point. I don't think it's really a surprise to anybody that the needle really hasn't moved with this nerf, right? I mean, in the very rare fights in which you actually merge, right, you might need to pay a little bit more attention to the fight. And with Leviathan's update, where we got the new MICA mechanics without a gimbal limit, it gave this plane the one tool it didn't need. I mean, it already has an insanely good radar, but now I can just launch from the defense. It just doesn't really matter anymore. Like, we've overreached with this plane so far, with moving the needle so far to the right. Like, the meta is just insanity with this plane. I mean, top tier is just kind of in a real sad state with both the Eurofighter and the Rafale. Like, these new Euro, I mean, not new anymore, but the newest Euro canards that we've gotten has just really done a number on, like, what to expect in the future of this game. And I mean, that's the logical progression, right? I mean, we're reaching the quote-unquote modern age of planes. Like, the F-22 is just around the corner. Like, next-gen IR is just around the corner. We're going to have insane thrust-vectoring IR missiles with no escape zones that would make some Fox 3s blush. It's just kind of like the writing on the wall, right? The Rafale is the obvious progression of what we'll get eventually. I think it's just more kind of sad to see it on paper and to see it actually happening now, right? Because, like, obviously we all enjoy this game and we still want it to be fun, but, like, we can see the direction it's going. And I think the Rafale is just a shining example of, like, what we're going to be getting out of top tier from here on out. But, I mean, that is the beautiful thing about Sim. We have the BR brackets, and there's BR bracket rotations that happen every other day. So, I mean, you don't have to stick at top tier. And eventually, the logical progression is eventually we'll have a BR bracket that is maybe older, quote-unquote, older Fox 3 planes, right? Like the F-16C and the J-10 and the Gripen and stuff like that. And the Rafale and the Giga Euro canards and everything else can kind of have their BR at the top, right? But obviously that's not what we have right now. But, I mean, I don't know, light at the end of the tunnel maybe. But that is the Rafale. And the Rafale is still going to be the Rafale for quite a while, the foreseeable future. But if you guys like the video and you like the content, drop a like, subscribe, leave a comment. It really helps a ton. And if you guys want to join Discord, there's a link to that down below in the description. It's a good place to interact with the community, and also a really good place to know when I'm live streaming. For those that don't know, I do live stream pretty often. Quite a few VODs sitting around, and if that's content that you also would be interested in, you know, drop a sub, join the Discord. There's a role called Live Notify in there, and it'll let you know every time that I go live. Sometimes YouTube kind of misses it. But that's all I got. I hope you guys have a phenomenal day. Peace.